Welcome back. So before I actually start the video, I'm gonna have a timestamp to where like the actual coding starts. But before I wanted to start, I wanted to read some comments because I thought they were pretty funny. But and also respond to some. Thank you guys for giving me my most viewed video last time. So I was like, there has to be a part two to this. So let me read a couple of comments. First of all, the guy said u/Linux. That was pretty clever. And another thing is, I am using a Mac, but right now I in that video also I was SSH into my Linux machine. Reason why I do this is because copying the 500 megabyte file over is just annoying because I edit on Mac. So that's the reason why I SSH, and I don't think there's a tool that I'm going to use that needs a GUI. So yeah. And the argv being modifiable, that one I actually had forgotten. Thanks for reminding me. And another thing is I could have relinked BusyBox LS even though I mentioned it. I don't know why I didn't do it. But whatever. I ended up resetting it. But thank you guys for letting me know. And some people mentioned like to write my own POSIX shell. That's a decent idea. I have before, but me making it into a video, I think that'll actually be a pretty decent idea. And kernel rewrite, that's pretty insane. Um, and the other thing is, this was mentioned like 4 or 5 times. I totally forgot that the root directory was at /root, not /home/root. I never log in as root, so I never had to use the root directory aside from like maybe when I was like 7 or something when I was messing around with like the root directory. But yeah, that was a mistake, and I apologize. And yeah, that's about it. There's not really any other comments I had. Um, yeah. Oh, sorry. Last one. My prompt. At first I didn't get why it was distracting, but I kind of like my prompt. But to meet in the middle, I'll change the color of it because I think it's difficult to tell what is the command because I have everything like spaced out instead of like having a delimiter at the end, which I know for a lot of people that's like really confusing. For me, it's not, but I understand why it is. So I'm just gonna like change the color of my prompt real quick. So yeah, give me like 1 second. Well, I'm back now. I made it a very distinctly different color. So hopefully that helps a little bit in discerning whether like it's a command or not. If it still doesn't help, then let me know. I'll have like a different ZSH config for my videos and different one for my like personal use. So, anyways, let's get started. Like last time, this video is totally unplanned, so you're gonna see a lot of mistakes. Um, let's actually get rid of this because we've already explained this how like the arguments and stuff work. If you haven't seen that video, I'd probably recommend checking the part one before the part two. But we did ls, we did rm, we did a good chunk of them. Let's start by doing even simpler ones. Let's use rm as a base because it's not going to be too different from this. So let's do rmdir for remove directory and mkdir for make directory. It's not going to be all that we're going to cover, but we can just copy the code from last time and just change around, all the mentions to rm and make them mk. This is rmdir like that, and we can do okay, unable to delete directory, and then give it a reason. And instead of calling unlink, we're going to call something else. So let's open up our trusty man pages, rmdir, and as you can see, it's in uni std, and its return value we have to take a look at. Upon successful completion, return 0, otherwise -1 shall be indicated and the error no will be set. So it's like a one function swap. I'm not going to compile this yet. Let's do mkdir next. This is not going to be much different. So let's go here. And somebody did mention that these are like wrappers around the system calls, and I totally agree. They're not that much different from how the actual system calls work. And let's go to the man pages just to be sure. It is in systat, so we're going to change this right here. And it has 2 arguments. It also has the mode. So for the mode, we're probably going to take a look at an implementation and see what the default mode is, and give me like 1 minute because I think I know what it is, but I totally forgot. So I mean, I was going to look it up, but then I just realized I could probably do mkdir and just look at it. So it's 0755. That's octal, by the way. So let's just do that. Stick with that. It's probably something like a proper way to determine it, but we're not writing proper code. We're just writing example. Trust me, that's not like a cop out, but I mean, it kind of is. But and the error no is exactly the same, so we just got mkdir working, and let's do one more. Actually, not one more. We're probably going to do a couple more. This one is going to be a little bit more different. Instead of just swapping out one function, we're going to try to do this in a more clever way. Well, one thing we'll do is we're going to limit the arguments to only 2. So it's copying from one destination to another. We're just going to copy plain files. We're not going to do recursive just yet. Maybe some other day. And we're going to have another check. I know we can probably put this all in one, but I want to be able to differentiate them. So if we have 2 files given, how many arguments do we have in total? Well, we'll probably have one for the actual executable, like how it was called. Then the 2 files, so that's going to be a total of 3. So if it's greater than 3, we'll throw an error and say that well, let's say too many arguments given. Again, this is just so I don't spend like more time than I need. I just want to keep it a little bit simple. So we know that argc is now, what the hell? Okay, whatever. That happens sometimes. I don't know why. I frankly don't care enough. I probably haven't updated my system in like a decade now, so that's probably why. I can't wait to do. Actually, you know what? I'm curious. Give me 1 second. Oh wow, I have 20 gigabytes of updates. I'm like the way I am, I probably shouldn't be on a rolling release distribution, but it hasn't broken yet, so I think what I'm doing is probably going to bite me one day, but whatever. Anyways, let's get started. We'll do const char because we're not going to really modify these. We're going to do source. Again, the first one is the executable, and this now we're going to do the destination. Okay, we're going to copy from this that source to that destination. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to copy like how you usually would, like, you know, take some bytes from one and put it into the other. Well, we'll do a naive attempt first. So this is a very, very, very stupid idea. I wouldn't do this, but well, it's not super stupid, but it's pretty stupid. We're gonna do it that way first. We're gonna call it src_fp, and we're gonna do fopen. We're gonna open that source file and do read bytes. And again, I know how this one works, but I'm gonna assume you guys don't. So demand 3 fopen, and let's see what happens if there is an error. Null is returned and error no is changed. So if srcf, okay, let's just do this, right? Enable to open source, and then give it the source file name and give it the error string afterwards. Okay, now that that's opened, what we're gonna do is, again, this is why I say this is dumb, because you are copying the entire file into memory. This isn't good, but I'm still gonna do it because I want to, like, I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'll just show it in just in case, because I remember one time somebody asked me this question. They were asking me how to copy an entire file into memory in C, and because they couldn't get the size of the file, but I think there's a way to do it. So we're just gonna work with, why can't I type uint_t? We're gonna work with just raw bytes. So it's just gonna do, I don't know, data, right? And we're gonna malloc a certain amount of bytes into here. How do we check the size of the file? Well, we can seek into the file, right? We can do fseek, and we can seek all the way to the end, right? Seek end. So we're at the end of the file, and all we do is just check our current position in the file, ftell. And seek set, so we go back whenever we read from the file again. We're not gonna like read at the end and get an immediate EOF. So let's allocate the buffer. We're not doing +1 for the null terminator because we're not going to be using this as a string. We are only loading this into memory and then throwing it up into a different file. So that's it. Wait, sorry. fread data size. Well, okay, here you can read. The reason why there's two size variables is, the first one is, like, let's say you're reading like a binary file format, right? And you're trying to read in, like, there are like 4 consecutive, like 64 byte structures within the file, right? You'd probably want to give the size of the structure and the number afterwards. It's like how you could, it's just an easier way to do it. But for our case, it doesn't really matter. We can do this because it's 1 byte and do size here. It really doesn't matter that much. But, and if there is a failure, there's a way to handle this. fseek, I should probably check the error, but I'm not going to yet. I'll check it on the next one, which I don't think we're going to use fseek there. But we can read it. And let's check for an error here. Sorry. Upon will return the number of bytes. Yeah, this is way too annoying to manage. This is just a demonstration. Not for this one. The next version I'm going to write, the smarter version, I'm going to actually check for all the errors and stuff. So we're going to close the src one. I'm gonna copy this from above. And we're gonna, jump down and paste this here. We're gonna open the destination and let's make sure it's writable. The destination FP. And what is it? Open destination. Just like that. And let's move up and just F-write the data buffer, the size to the destination file pointer, and F-close destination. And make sure to free the data buffer also. Voila, this should work. Let's test it out. GCC put test.c. Wait, no, what am I doing? It's like this. Okay. Let's check it out. Boom. We got a copy of the source code for that file. Well, what is a smart way to do it? Why is it marking this as a CPP file? This is not a CPP file. Okay, whatever. Now, what's the smart way to do this? Well, we're gonna not need a dynamically allocated buffer, which is good, meaning it's a little bit faster. We're actually gonna open both files right at the start because we're going to. Let me do that first, and then we'll. Let's do srcfp and that destination fp, and then let's replace source with destination. Okay. Now that we've done that, we can swap this from read byte to write byte. And now we've opened both of the files. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to have a buffer, but it's going to be statically allocated. There is this one thing out there, paper that showed like what is the right size buffer to like copy files, I think. And there's a specific size I totally forgot. But we're going to stick with like the smallest page size, which is going to be 4096. It's going to be our little buffer. And what we're going to do is first we're going to try to read from the file, right? While we're going to keep reading until it hits the end of the file. So now the error return values for read are actually very relevant. Read and write both will return the number of items read or written. This means if we're reading in 4096 chunks and the file is 4100, right? So it's 4 more. It's going to read 4096. It's going to return that the first time around. Next time around, it's going to return 4. 4 doesn't mean that the file is there's an error. It's only when the return value is 0. And you also have to is a short item count or 0. You have to notice this number equals to the number of bytes transferred when the size is 1. So remember when I said that there's size and then there's n? That's very important. So if you take a look here, size and n right there, and the size is 1. So we have to make sure the size is 1 so this will actually work. So let's do fread, right? And we're going to read into that buffer that we made. Size has to be 1, and we read size of the buffer. There's a bit of disagreement whether to do this or with parentheses. Apparently, I didn't actually know that, but there's probably a reason. But I do it with parentheses. That's what I was taught. So we do src fp, and all we do is just make sure it's not 0. If it's 0, we hit the end of file. And well, it hits 0. There's two things that could have happened. Either an error occurred or the end of file is reached. Now, how do we tell if there's a end of file or an error? Well, it says it right there, EOF or F error. So let's take a look at those. So we can, oh, it's nice, it's all in the same man page. Cool. EOF will return non-zero if the error indicator is set for the stream, otherwise it returns 0. So either one of them will return 0 if it's not that. So let's do if EOF, right? Let's do src fp. If it is 0, we don't care because we've reached the end of the file. We've copied everything we needed, right? So if it's not equal to 0, if we have reached the end of the file, this should not be 0. So we're going to check if it is 0. That means that we have reached the end of file, so we should probably check for an error. So let's do another if here. We could probably put this all in one. Actually, I should probably do that. F error src fp doesn't equal, so if return non-zero if error indicator is set. So then we can print out an error right here. Unable error occurred in copying file. Okay, I need to figure out how to occurred is spelled. My spelling sucks. Give me one moment. Okay, I had misspelled it last video, so this should be like that. And these functions should not fail and do not set error no. So these will not set the error no, but let's see how we can get the error no. Upon error, what happens? So error no is probably not going to be set. So what we can do is we're not going to try to like pull out the error no or something like that. We're just going to say error occurred when copying file and just call it a day. And here, let's make sure to fclose both files, source fp, fclose, destination fp. So let's get back to here. We're gonna, now we've read it, we're gonna do if fwrite. So here's the thing. If you take a look, fread does not distinguish between end of file and error. Fwrite does. Fwrite is not going to really hit an EOF because it's it's writing to the file, right? If it just hits the end of the file, it's just going to keep writing, right? It's just going to make the file bigger. So what we're going to do is we know that if it's not the number of bytes written, because again, it's not like fread where we can't read in chunks. So if it isn't, we're gonna have issues. But before I go ahead, I did miss something. What we're gonna want to do is we're gonna want the number of bytes actually read, because remember, this is 4096. If it reads, let's say 500 bytes instead of 4096, we're gonna tack on whatever 500 out of 4096 minus 500 null bytes on the end of it, or God forbid, like garbage data from before. So we're gonna actually have to capture the value of what this returns. So this returns ss size _t, sorry, s size underscore t, not ss. So red bytes. So we're going to do red bytes like that. And then we're going to in the destination FP. We're just going to make sure it doesn't equal, if it doesn't equal 0, sorry, if it does equal 0, sorry, we know that an error occurred. So copy this. And we will fail here because I don't really know what to do when this happens, but because if we do write to it and it fails writing to it, it's not going to work the second time around, so we should probably wrap everything up. So sorry for the abrupt cut. I actually ended up having to go back to this. This will not handle everything. This right here, I wrote this thinking it would. It will not. So what we want to make sure is that the number of bytes that were read are actually the bytes that were written. So what's going on? Oh, I might have been confusing it with something else. Okay, it's actually size underscore t, not s size underscore t. I don't know why I thought that, but my bad. And if it doesn't equal, because we're not, fwrite is not going to hit EOF. If it doesn't write it, there's probably some error that's going around. And before we actually do that, okay, here is probably a somewhat acceptable place I could use go to, but I'm not going to. Not necessarily because I think it's like the devil or anything, but people are probably going to get mad because apparently it's very opinionated whether you should use go to or not. But we're going to make sure to, clean everything up before we... It's probably acceptable to use go to by now, but whatever. So yeah, that should be it. I'm pretty sure I missed something. I probably did. So please let me know. I think I should probably use a go to. Not gonna lie. Yeah. What I would usually do is I would put like a status variable here, return it, and do a go to. I can actually show you guys that. And yeah, with goto you could probably do this. Again, some people don't like using goto. Some people think it's acceptable in certain doses. I'm one of those. And yeah, we can compile this and see if it works. Let's take a look. As you can see, we just copied our file and it works pretty well. I'm sure you can figure out a way to make this fail. It's probably not too hard. But yeah, so I think this works. Again, let me know in the comments below if I missed something. I probably did, but yeah. So thank you guys for watching. The original portion of this video, I had missed that. So I found a good point in that previous recording to splice this in. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully this video can do half as well as the previous one. But yeah, so stay tuned for the next video. Bye.